Hey everybody, this is Shawn.
This is Braden.
This is a quick ad here before we start our show. Yes, we got to pay the bills too, and we're fortunate to have a couple sponsors. And and one of them is a T-shirt giveaway from the Guitar Repair Center. This guy's the best. I've been using him for a long time. So go to our Facebook page, the Psychology of Lickage Facebook page. Go share and like
Yeah.
the T-shirt giveaway post. And we're going to be announcing that in a couple weeks. And what's the other thing? We got vintage and rare guitars that we're selling.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've become brokers now. Yeah. So what's the guitar of the week? What's the one this week?
So the guitar of the week this week is the Homer Haynes limited edition Stratocaster, built in 1988, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's a
Gorgeous.
run of
Yeah.
300, and it's almost got like a gold color to it.
Oh, yeah. It's just beautiful. It's modeled around the 57 Strat. They're very rare. It was one of the first Fender custom shop guitars built. So
Yeah.
if you want to find out more, go to the Facebook post. You'll see a picture of it, or I think you'll put it up on Instagram as
Yep.
well, right?
It'll be on Instagram too.
Yeah. Yeah, go check it out. And on with the show.
Hi, this is Shawn Meehan,
This is Braden Williams,
and you're listening to
the Psychology.
of Lickage.
We are back for episode 5.
are back.
Yeah, this is exciting.
It is.
This is rolling along. I'm really enjoying this. Wow, it's so educational. I'm learning so much, and I've gotten to hang with some of these people in the past, but you don't get to chat with them this extensively. Usually it's at a venue somewhere, and it's a smile and wave and a photo and a 5-10 minute chat. But I can't think of a better way to really corner someone for half an hour to an hour and pick their brain. It's awesome. How have you been feeling about this?
That's the cool part, because I mean, with interviews these days, I mean, you turn on the TV and you can literally just see like 5 seconds of what someone has to say, and it's just like picked out of like a 5-minute interview, right? Whereas this is like an hour. Like, we get to talk to these people for a really long time, so that's really cool. We've gotten some really cool feedback too from some cool people, so that's awesome. Thanks for the feedback, guys.
Yeah. For sure. Yeah, it's just what an amazing opportunity this is. And so, yeah, we've really kind of found a way to corner our heroes and chat with them in ways that we wouldn't normally have the opportunity to. So anyways, let's go to it. Let's introduce our next guest. This is Roman Johnson, the great Roman Johnson, incredible keyboard player, vocalist, music director, just musician extraordinaire. And another friend of our manager, Clyde Hill. This group of guys is just mind blowing. These musicians, the one we had last week, Morris, and now Roman. So let's just go to it. Let's go to the chat.
Okay.
Roman Johnson. So yeah, if you don't mind, we'll jump right into it. We got all kinds of questions for you, and I'm excited. I've been excited about this one for a while. So cool. Well. So Roman, okay, where do we start? Let's start with sort of telling sort of a general question. What we ask everybody is sort of, where does this all start for you? How old were you when you started playing, and sort of give us a bit of a background.
Well, basically, I'm ex-church kid. I still do, I still go, play sometimes. But I started out playing in church. My father was a musician. Pretty much, he was a pianist too. And I started playing. I guess I had to take it sort of serious. I think around 14.
Yeah.
I was sort of doodling around a bit, just playing on the black notes at first.
Yeah.
Until it came a point in time, and it was basically told to me that I was going to be the next musician of the church. So from that, I was about 14, and as I said, and so from that point, I think around that time. Oh no! Already by that time, I was going to the School for the Creative and Performing Arts, which is it was at that time. It was the second school in the country. It was basically patterned after I don't know if you remember the show Fame.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was patterned after that. So it was a regular school converted into an art school.
Yeah.
With pretty high standards when it came down to the arts. I went to school with a few people that have actually turned out to be famous in other parts of the arts, such as Sarah Jessica Parker that was on Sex and the City. We went to school
Cool.
together.
All right on.
And Roscoe Carroll, that's also been in a couple of big movies. We were classmates in jazz band.
Yeah.
And a few other people. NSYNC actually went to that school too, but of course that was I was gone.
It was sorry, Robin. Where was this school? What part of the country?
Cincinnati.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
So, because I always thought that you were part. I always thought you were part. How I know about you, how I got the good fortune of meeting you, was obviously through our manager and good friend Clyde Hill, and I always thought that you grew up with those guys, but I guess you're a bit younger than those guys, eh?
Right.
Yeah. But you basically ended up joining their band. Like, is that how, sir, you met Clyde? You were a youngest guy in the band, and you jumped on?
Yeah, I actually and his brother Mark and the rest of the guys. I was doing a gig.
Yeah.
My first time actually ever leaving Cincinnati to do a gig, and I was about 19 at that point. Yeah. And another friend had already been from Cincinnati, had been doing gigs over there at that time in Tokyo. They would have bands come over there like every 2 months. So I went over there, did the gig for the first time, and met Mark and Clyde. Yeah. And after that, I ended up coming back. I had already had plans to come to Los Angeles. Yeah. After leaving Tokyo, after my 6-month-long gig. Yeah. And then I ended up. Mark came back over, and we sort of talked. He was like, "Hey, would you join the band when you come over?" So we all ended up living together.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
To LA. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I was always wondering because I know there's a big group of guys that all kind of grew up in Chicago, and they all went on to play with all these great acts and famous acts and stuff like that. And I always wondered how you played into that. I guess you came and joined them a bit later.
Yeah. They were already over there. They were doing one thing, at that time doing that band Brahma, and then I was doing a whole nother thing, and just sort of at the end of our gig was just a gig. We weren't a band. Yeah. It was over. I planned on coming to LA just to see what it was about, and if I really wanted to do this music thing.
Yeah. It's interesting because this a few things we've asked other people is would you see yourself not doing music? Like, is this something that you could take or leave, or is this something you just couldn't see yourself doing anything else?
Well, it's probably a no question. I couldn't see myself not doing it.
Yeah.
Probably a no answer, because on one side, I mean, when I look at how the business has changed, and the different, transitions it's gone through, it makes me sometimes wonder if I had just kept up what I was going to go and do, just so I would have had it as something secondary. But I must say, music has been a unexpected adventure of many things that I would have just never guessed that I would have done. You know what I mean?
Clyde was filling me in on your past, and he was, all the different people you played with and all the, was it just kind of was it sort of one lucky break after another, or did one gig lead to the next, or how did all that happen? All these, we played with the Gap Band, and of course now you've been playing with Stevie Wonder and everything in between. How did that all happen?
Well, basically, when I got to Los Angeles, there was a friend by the name of Penny Ford. Yeah. She's actually the main lead singer for the group Snap, who did the song "I Got the Power." Mm-hmm. And she was already there. She was on the label Total Experience Records, which is the label the Gap Band was on. Yeah. And so, Gap Band was one of our most favorite groups. That's why she ended up there, sort of signed to that label. Yeah. Even Shaka Khan fans. And everybody, And so she basically did a lot of promoting for me, about me, before I even got to Los Angeles. And then once I got over to Total Experience and met friends there and made good friends and met Charlie Wilson and that But before I knew it, I was asked to join the band. From that point on, it just sort of kept, one thing, because I was with a good band and I was, pretty decent keyboard player and one of the new kids on the block in LA. Sort of led me into one thing to the other. And then I began musical directing. So I became musical director for several.
I was going to ask you about that. You were music director for En Vogue, which I'm a huge En Vogue fan. And
Vogue.
Tony En Vogue. Sorry,
Isley Brothers, New Edition.
Wow,
cool.
Oh my God, I'm leaving out a bunch of stuff.
but has that been pretty much your main gig throughout the years? Like, has that been people pull you in to be the music director kind of thing?
Yeah, it actually transformed. Once I did the first Karen White, it just sort of kept going from there. And I, would get called to do one gig after another. And then I just sort of kept bouncing back around pretty much. I was with the Isley Brothers quite a long time.
Oh, cool.
In between doing En Vogue as well. Just so happened like the schedules would work out most of the time.
Yeah.
So I was able to do both groups. But that's sort of basically how it happened. I didn't have to do any interviews. Only interview, or audition I ever did was I worked with Morris Day on the Fishnet. And it was sort of funny. I had went in the studio and recorded with them, but they were doing auditions for drummers and I think guitar players and keyboard players. Yeah. And so I was like, oh God, I don't want to go do but it's like, just come on, you probably got the gig anyway, just come on, do it, and just check it out. So I waited until the end of the day and finally went to the audition. And at the very end, I was probably the last keyboard player to that audition for that particular seat. Yeah. And of course, at the end, it was like, okay, you got the gig, so let's go ahead. And I felt bad. There was
stole the gig from everyone else trying out.
that I knew, too. When I walked in the door, man. It was like, hey, what's going here? It was like, oh, man.
Oh, man.
Yeah, and besides that, the only other gig I auditioned for was Stevie.
Yeah, tell us about that. That was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Well, Nate Watts has been band leader he's been with Stevie for at least 40 years.
Wow.
And played on a lot of the hits.
Yeah.
We were friends and we would see each other periodically around town. And finally, that he would say from time to time, man, I'm gonna probably give you a call one day about that gig. It's like, oh yeah, right. So finally, the last time before the auditions actually came up, he was like, hey man, I'm serious this time. Listen to the stuff. So of course, Stevie has a million songs, and as a keyboard player, you're not just listening to the Rhodes or a piano part.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, you're going to be playing that part.
Yeah.
You're going to be playing all of these auxiliary parts and different things. So I had so many things to listen to. And finally the day came for the audition. And I went down there. I was nervous. I get in there, man. It was a trip.
Wow.
He wanted to test and find out your ability to be able to follow him and to be able to hear exactly what he's doing. Wow. So it's like, oh my God.
Well, you obviously survived it.
And so, so I had...
This is a podcast that's sort of we like to have a little bit of psychology twist to it. What are people thinking? What's the psychology behind playing and what you're thinking, all that stuff. And you touched on something that was interesting. You talked about how I think you were influenced by your dad, or that your dad played. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Yeah. So talk me a little bit more about that relationship.
Yeah. Well, my pops, actually, for his age, I didn't realize. I knew that he played more advanced, even with playing gospel music than most, gospel musicians at that time. That was, his age.
Mm-hmm.
But it was only until I was working on a project for an old friend who was getting into doing commercial jingles and stuff.
Yeah.
She's a singer.
Yeah.
And she asked me to do this song by Nat King Cole called Straighten Up and Fly Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And as I was learning the song, because I had to learn it and record it and then, transpose it for the key for her.
Yeah.
So as I'm learning the song, I'm listening, I'm like, man, the style really sounds familiar. I've, heard Nat King Cole do the Christmas song and other stuff, a million times, but I never really heard that song.
Yeah.
And it clicked. It's like, that's where my father, that he must have been one of his mentors.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a player, Nat King Cole. And so from that, basically we had to learn in our house, it was basically a rule that everybody had to go to piano lessons, whether or not you were going to actually play or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And it just sort of like, and then just listening to his influence and how he basically, taught us. I mean, because I have another brother that plays too.
Yeah.
But we was, basically taught, and any of the musicians that was around us to, like if you were dealing with singers, not to overplay the singers, to accompany singers, to really listen to, melody and dynamics.
Yeah.
Not playing too loud, all of the different things like that, to just so that you could be a more well-rounded musician.
Yeah.
And just not a self-driven musician just playing out the box like all crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, another thing we've talked about on one of the first podcasts is, and I want to hear it from a keyboard player's point of view, because it's a completely keyboard is such a different. The guitar is a much more pattern instrument. You learn a few patterns and you move it around into different keys, and you really don't need to know what you're doing. Just move over a few frets and you're in a different key, kind of thing. Whereas but we have this theory called the 3-lick theory with guitar players, where, most guitar players know lots of licks and stuff, but it really comes down to 3 licks. They kind of lean on 3 licks, when it comes down to it. Is keyboard playing like that too? Or do you find you guys think completely differently?
Oh, yeah. Now we think differently because you have counterpoint going on with melody and chords.
That's right.
At the point of having to play bass line. At the same time too.
Yeah.
It's just like when I was, I used to be really heavily into bass line. Like when I first started playing, I just started playing piano. I started playing organ.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was the organist first. And so, I was really into the bass line a lot.
Yeah.
And as I got more into my right hand, I got more into the chording aspect, and then with the organ, of course, you're using bass pedals. Yeah. So now your bass is on your feet instead of in your hands.
Yeah.
So it's like it's a totally different thing than playing a guitar. I mean,
that's what's always blown my mind. Yeah. That's what's always blown my mind about keyboard players. You're essentially, in your case, playing 3 or 4 instruments, but most keyboard players are playing 2. You know what I mean? You got the bass line going. You got, us guitar players are simple. We can barely do one thing going on, and you guys are going 2 or 3 things going.
Yeah, you got to be coordinated, and on top of that, when I first started, I was also directing the choir too. So. Oh my
god. Oh, that's funny. Hey, okay, I gotta ask this: Did you ever at any point, like when you were in Vogue or whoever, play one of those, those guitar keyboard things? I don't even know what they're called,
but guitar.
Actually,
guitar. Yeah.
Actually, to be honest, I was really into that instrument. The only problem was when you would want to like the first one that I ever saw was at the NAMM show.
Yeah.
And basically it had the neck and everything like a guitar. But the thing was, when you it just had some strings on it. Like the strings weren't even like tuned up or anything. They didn't have to be, because the way I think you had to play it, I think you had the chord with your left hand,
Yeah.
and then you had to strum with your right hand. So it gave you the feeling of like, because there's only few keyboard players that I've actually ever seen and play like guitar sounds on a keyboard and make it feel like it was really a guitarist playing, and that was
Yeah.
Johnny Carr Watson
Yeah.
and Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Even when you listen to that, apparently, I think you probably know this story better than I do, Roman. But apparently, I think didn't he write Superstition for Jeff Beck, or something like that.
Yeah, I believe.
And when you listen, yeah, sorry,
Yeah, yes, he did.
yeah, and didn't it, and when you listen to that, it's a guitar riff. It's easy to play that on the guitar. You know what I mean? It's sort of naturally an open E kind of thing. And so yeah, you bring up a good point. He does play like a guitar player sometimes, doesn't he?
Yeah, totally. I mean, normally it's hard because you can't stroll. I mean, you can't strum to my stroll. You can't strum.
Yeah.
I was playing with my lights over here in my studio.
I think it's strobe light.
But yeah, you can't strum on a keyboard. So to be able to pitch bend and to get that feeling is like a lot of times when some keyboard players, unless you're being really sensitive to what the instrument is and really trying to articulate like the actual the instrument itself, generally people just sort of like get on there and just play it a certain kind of way, like you're playing a keyboard, and you won't really get the same articulation or same feeling if you don't approach it that way.
Well, that's cool. Well, hey, Braden, do you have any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, actually, I have two questions. One is if you've ever heard of Roman, if you've ever heard of that, I think it's called a Rolly keyboard.
Yeah, it's
Have you ever played that
big circle one, right? No. It's that other one that you touch into, right?
Yeah. It's the one where you can do the modulation and you can do the pitch bending and stuff on each key.
Right, and you sort of press into it and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was just wondering what you thought of that.
I saw it. I tried to play it. It was a little bit. I don't know. It was. I got the concept. It was still a little mechanical feeling.
Right.
One thing I don't like about even like when you're writing and you're using certain programs, because I'm very much a feel player, so it's amazing how a tenth of a second can actually, you can feel the difference if you're
true.
on
for
something.
Sure.
And that note does not connect when your finger does.
Yeah.
It's just such it's amazing. And sometimes it's something that drives me crazy a bit. So I try to adjust that. But that Rolly, that I saw it and I did like it. And I thought it was a good idea.
Yeah.
I would like to have something like that to create in a certain kind of, use it like a keyboard guitar, sort of like what Steve is doing right now. I don't know if you've noticed this. He's it's not a guitar. It's oh my god, I feel bad for bringing it up. But basically, how it's laid out, it's almost laid out as a keyboard when it comes to how the structure of it is. As far as scale, it's not quite like, I guess, in the same kind of positions it would be for a guitar.
Yeah.
So because you can go up very high, it's almost like a steel guitar, but the way it's set, more like a keyboard.
Yeah.
So you can play it. When you play it a certain way, especially once you put pedals and effects and stuff on it, you could really trick somebody into thinking it was a guitar.
Wow.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said you had 2 questions there, Braden. What's the second one?
Yeah, we've had a lot of guitar players on the show, and it's kind of cool to listen to, because what exactly was like the defining moment where you're like, oh, I want to play keyboard? Because for guitar players, a lot of that is a big one for them is Jimi Hendrix and those guys. But I'm just wondering, from like a keyboardist point of view, was there any particular person that kind of was like, wow, I want to do that?
Oh yes. In the beginning, I started off playing organ, so I used to listen to Jimmy Smith, Groove Holmes, Chester Thomas, and guys like that for the organ side. But then once I really started getting off into keyboards, I really started. I loved Chick Corea. I loved Herbie.
Yeah.
I loved, of course, some of the other really heavy jazz piano players, but who really sort of got my attention because of the era and at that time and the style of music was George Duke.
Interesting.
Oh,
yeah, he actually, because he had the ability, I realized, of being able to bop hard jazz and at the same time go funky and just have a lot of fun on both spectrums of the music, where when I listened to Chick Corea, it was just that. I mean, Herbie was like that until he did like Rocket.
Yeah.
And Rocket was something that was totally, not as deep.
Yeah.
As the capability of music that he produced and played.
Yeah.
But George Duke was the one for me that just sort of like carried me over the rest of the threshold. As far as
cool.
Go ahead and do this music for real.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
very
one
cool.
thing he told me the first time I met him out here in LA, I had been asked to do. It was in Vogue. We did the award show for Don Denis, and everybody was so impressed with, and I was musical directing that, and George asked me to do the tribute for Janet Jackson on the show, and we had just met.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, would you give me some recommendations of what to do? I mean, you've been my idol for all these years. He said, play the blues.
Yeah, play the blues.
Awesome.
That was it. I was like, that's it? Play the blues? Yeah, man, just play the blues.
That's cool.
Okay, all right. But you're so much more than the blues,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it really comes down to the blues, doesn't it? It just comes down to, if you trace any, if you look at the guitar players that Braden and I grew up with, I mean, you can trace it all back to the blues.
Exactly.
All of it, man. So, yeah. I mean, I think I've got, guys, I got to get rocking. I slotted an hour, and I know we could keep going for another hour. This is awesome.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow, that was quick.
No kidding, eh? I know.
Wow.
I know. Once the chats gets going, it's like, and it gets really interesting. It's like you don't want to stop. There's so many more questions. But if you'll consider coming back on in the future, we'd love to have you back, man. That'd be cool.
I'd love to talk. Yeah, I do an interview after. I planned on releasing something on an EP for myself.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
In this month, but of course, with all of this Corona stuff going on, it's just like. Sort of it gave me a little bit more time to tweak some things out. So I'd love to do it sometime soon, because
that'd be awesome. Yeah,
my EP.
Yeah,
cool. Yeah, come on and let's plug it. We'll talk about it. And thanks again, man, for coming on. It's been an honor. You. And I also want to thank you for I've known you for a few years, and you've always given me the time of day and just treated me like the rest of your buddies. And I don't know, I was just sort of a tag along to one of your buddies, but you've never treated me that way. You've always been gracious and very cool. So this has been an honor to do this. Thank you, Roman. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, guys. Thank you.
Stay safe, man. We'll talk again soon.
All right.
For sure.
Free.
Yeah, exactly. Take care, man.
Unless you have a live.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's a whole different kind of Corona.
Right.
Yeah.
I plan to go have a few of those right now. Okay.
I hear you, bro. I got one in
Yeah.
Mississippi.
Right
All
on,
right,
man. Take care. Cheers.
cheers.
Later.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, what a chat.
Oh, that was
What
so
a great
cool.
chat. What an amazing guy.
Yeah.
What did you learn from this, Braden? What did you take away a few things from this chat? Like, I'm sure you did.
Well, I think probably the coolest part was just getting to sit down and talk to him for the amount of time that we did, because you think about these people and you idolize these people, and you think like you don't really get to see the niceness and the humbleness, because all you see is them playing music, right? So you don't notice.
That's right.
Yeah, you don't notice this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it kind of makes you understand that these people are actual people. They're not just playing music.
And they're very modest people. They're very humble people.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
one thing I've noticed from interviewing all these people. Like, there's lots more great interviews coming up, by the way, guys. Just the amount of guests we're getting. We're so fortunate. A little bit of good timing because everyone's sitting at home right now. But I'm noticing there's a common thread, and it's kind of why I like studying human behavior.
Yeah.
And why we call this the psychology of lickage is we want to find the common threads. What is it that makes these people great?
Yeah.
What is it that, because I don't believe that, yes, there's some natural talent, but I tend to, the more I study and the more I research, the more I find it's mostly developed.
Yeah.
And there's a certain mindset. There's a certain humble mindset where I don't think any of them really think they're great. I think they're just really hardworking folks.
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
And so
yeah.
So, and one thing, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, psychology is one part of it is it's more like sociology, but finding the general and the peculiar. And so it'd be like, looking at all these different people and trying to find the general, like, okay, what can we bring out of all these different people that are similar? And then,
Absolutely.
work from there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I found was similar so far. It seems like it's a family business like any other.
Yeah.
It seems like most of them,
yeah.
Their father was a player, or their mother forced them to play, growing up, and their dad, there's another guest coming up soon, Russ Klein, who, in my opinion, is one of the great Canadian, studio guys and live guys. I mean, this guy he's toured the world with, Nelly Furtado to, he's one of the best in Canada. He's one of the first guys you call. And man, and I've genuinely hung out with this guy. I've had the really good fortune of really he's got his guard down. We're hanging out at his place, having a beer. We're trying to write songs or whatever. And so I've got to see the real him, and he generally is super modest. Like, he gets really uncomfortable when you fanboy him, you know what I mean? He's like, I just did. And I hated picking up a guitar in front of this guy. It's just like,
yeah.
A part of me loved it because he's a great guy and I wanted to learn so much from. The other part, it's like, it's just a reminder how much work I have to do.
Yeah. One thing that's worth thinking about with this stuff is whether or not that is something that's learned through the process, or whether or not it's just innate within them. You know what I mean? Because all these.
Well, I think, I think it's a combination of. I think there's high expectancies. I think so far a lot of these guests came from a lot of high expectation in their families. Whether it's you have to be. In Roman's case, he talks about he has to be the next church organist.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of pressure when you're from a family that goes to church every week, and there's one organist probably. Yeah. You're the next one. And you better be good, because the church is the community. Like, it's the pillar of their community, right?
Yeah.
In Russ's case, you guys got to stick around for that interview. It's going to be coming up in a few weeks. Yeah. In his case, he talks about his dad a lot, and how his dad pushed him, and I think he walks around with that sort of always trying to impress his dad, even though he's, you know what I mean by that? Like, it's there's a connection there, it seems, where it's a combination of somehow and good timing. Good timing, yes. Too, like in the book Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, he talks about how it's these people that have accomplished great things. It's kind of a combination of things that were out of their control, born into a family that happen to be full of great musicians. So for them, it's their normal.
Yeah,
I think it's Russ's normal to be a great guitar player.
Yeah.
Right. It's just, and he,
which
and
adds
I love
to the
how humble he
humbleness.
was. He was like praising his dad and praising his brother. And Roman was the same thing. Roman was just very, like, Clyde, our manager, has talked about Roman and talked about how this guy he was the greatest guy in the band. He was the youngest guy in the band, and by far the superior musician. And I remember he tells me this story how he's upstairs. He had just joined the band or something. I think he's learning the songs. And Clyde comes up and says, "Are you going to come down and play with us?" Or, yeah, I'm just listening. And he comes down and slays it in one rehearsal. Yeah. And I think he barely got the call. It was like, I don't think he was that familiar with me. So, so that's the one thing I've taken away from it is I'm learning that everyone's modest. So kids, if you're listening, I think anyone who's listening, I think if you got to demolish your ego, I think the ego gets in the way. If you want to be great at anything, So, what's something else you took away from it?
Yeah, something else that I thought about was we talked about the 3-lick theory with him, which was a total departure from what we usually talk about the 3-lick theory because he totally debunks it.
Oh, totally. He destroys it. Yeah. But I think it's the nature of his instrument. I think. Yeah. I mean, this is the psychology of lickage. So I guess lickage can be guitar, can be obviously it's a guitar focused because we're both guitar players. Yeah. But it's good to learn from other players, and I think some great guitar players, try to debunk. I think it's their mission to debunk the 3-lick theory. Yep. That's why they'll go out of their way to copy, horn players and piano players because these guys don't really learn 3 licks. They have to look at the instrument completely different. So, So it's another, I was just gonna, it's another reminder.
The 3-lick theory, I just thought about this, but it's similar to the Pareto principle with the way that it's distributed because you have like these 3 licks and you play them like 80% of the time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
It's I think it's quite different for piano players just because guitar, like you said, is more of a pattern instrument, whereas keyboard is all laid out in front of you and it's all equal. Like
it's totally. It's kind of like like if you become an author, you can't just. You have to learn the alphabet, then you have to learn words, then you have to learn how to phrase. You have to learn all these things, and then you got to tell your story. And whereas when you're a guitar player, you don't have to learn all those things. You can cheat. Oh yeah. I think that's why it became such a popular instrument. You can cheat and be kind of cool on the instrument. Oh yeah. And be in a band, and that saying, 3 chords and 3 licks and a couple of good melodies, and you can be a rock star. And there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah. And so it's funny. I think you were mentioning to me. There was a very popular political podcast host. We won't mention his name, but he was destroying a very famous John Lennon song, and he was and he's trying to destroy John Lennon as well. And he goes, "Oh well, because John Lennon can't read music, then he's not a proficient musician. Well,
therefore, it's not credible." It's like
he's not credible. Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. There you go. There's a whole other topic. There's a whole other sort of. What is a great musician? Is it? I tend to think that it's just one that touches your soul, touches your heart, regardless of whether they know 3 licks or whether they know the whole keyboard like Roman does. Yeah, I think that's what makes Roman magical. It's not that he knows all this stuff. He went through the motions and he learned how to play the instrument, but it's the soul he puts into it. I think that's how he got those gigs. I think he brings that modesty to the gig. Oh yeah, he's just such a I love hanging around the guy. Yeah. I love hanging around all these guys. They're just like they're so modest and their energy is cool. So anyways, that's we could go on all day about this, but the podcast probably sitting at 45 minutes. And if you're still listening, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for the comments and reviews. And we want to hear about you. So again, go to the Facebook page, go to Instagram. Yeah. There's our websites as well. Braden and I have websites. What's yours, Braden?
Yeah, it's bradenwilliams.ca.
Oh, cool. And then mine is meandmusic.com. I got to spell out mean because nobody ever says this properly. There's a silent H in there. Yeah. MEEHAN music.com. And you can find out more about the podcast or anything else we're up to.
Yeah. As well. Just send us a message on all social media and let us know how we're doing. And,
Please, and negative stuff. We love the negative stuff too. We want to learn, right? We'll probably learn more from the negative stuff than the positive stuff. So, just something you don't like about what we're doing, we're listening. We're open to ideas and stuff. And again, we really appreciate you listening. And see you at the next episode. Yeah, or at least we'll hear each other.
Hi, this is Shawn Meehan.
This is Braden Williams,
and you're listening to
The Psychology
of Lickage.